So, Sif, last week we were discussing something very interesting, which didn't really make it to the final cut, but we thought we'd explore it a bit more. And I thought this might be a good opportunity. It was something of beliefs. Do you know that quote? I completely forgot it.
So yeah, it goes like, we don't get to choose our beliefs.
You get to choose our beliefs. Yeah. Okay. Now, what's your interpretation of that?
I think I would say initially I was like, wait, that sounds ridiculous. I don't get to choose my beliefs. But then I thought about it. I'm like, and I was reading also with books about it and like Steven Bartlett's perspective about it, and it makes sense because like the way I actually agree with it, that you don't actually get to. A lot of the beliefs you have, you didn't really get to choose it, or you didn't choose it. And if I was to really break it down, right? Let me say at this instance of time, say you have some belief. If you want to share it, up to you. Say at this very moment, I want you to disbelieve that. Can you do it? Okay, let's just go something very simple. Say the sky is blue. I want you to disbelieve that the sky is blue, the sky is green.
Without evidence, though? Or just in general, just completely believe it?
Just at that instance of like, can you disbelieve something?
I don't think, not in that instance, no.
Even if I put you to a gunpoint, or even if I put like $1 billion in front of you, or $100 billion.
Yeah, I mean, if you put $1 billion to the sky's green, yeah, I would say the sky's green.
But that's you saying it, but you don't believe in that until you actually see that it's actually green, right?
Right.
So then that shows you how beliefs come from evidence, and it's actually like our the way he describes it is like our interpretation of the evidence, like how, and it's. Obviously, like to some extent, there's biases involved, so it makes it like subjective. There's also some objective evidence as well, but in this case, it comes through in the physical evidence. You'd say like when you see the sky, you think, okay, yeah, it's obviously it's not green, it's blue. So, like in what this then emphasizes is that the beliefs that we have, a lot of it stems from evidence that we provide, or either it comes from evidence from someone else, which is then authority bias. It's like someone that is like, for example, with religion, probably it's from like someone who's highly religious that you looked up to, that you respect, that you would listen to what they're saying.
A religious leader. So,
your religious leader, or like a sheikh, or whoever, whichever religion you're part of, segment. And it's like, so then it's like either evidence comes from people that are higher than you, like that are at a high status, so it's like authority, or it comes from your own self-interpretation, which stays with you a lot of the time. And it's such evidence that you're presented.
So, but then isn't there some facts to that evidence? Like, your beliefs, you can't disbelieve something if there's hard evidence and factual evidence to back it up, right? Like, so for example, they're saying the sky is blue. There's facts and evidence to back it up that it's blue. So in a way, you do choose that belief. You don't choose the belief that the sky is red because there's no...
But if I told you at this instance to choose, yeah, you needed evidence for that. Like I can't at this instance of time, like if you come here in front of me and tell me, put a gun to my head and say, if you don't believe I'm Jesus Christ, I'll shoot you. Only in that instance, I'll say yes, because I don't want to die. But I didn't get to choose I didn't get to actually, even though I say that, I don't believe that. It's like the same as me saying like, I believe I can lift or like 500 kilos, I can deadlift 500 kilos. But I don't truly believe that until I actually do it. I'm just saying it. Doesn't mean that I believe in that.
Do you think to an extent people get to choose their beliefs? Like, for example, like if I look at your story, from a religious perspective, you've looked at things from an objective view, which I commend you for, or texts and looking at what is this trying to tell me? What does this mean? You then made the choice to choose that belief based on facts and evidence that works, like that's appropriate to you. So I think there are certain instances, like my opinion, like the way I see that fact, and I'd love to talk to, it'd be interesting to speak to Steven about it, but it's like, I think you inherit certain beliefs but you can also get out of certain beliefs as well. Like you're not forever chained to those beliefs. But I think there are instances in time where people actually can't get out of that belief. So, for example, someone that's grown up in poverty their entire life, they've seen, they've been poor, they've had, like they don't see that they could go out. They're probably the first generation to go to university or whatever. They don't see beyond that they can go on to achieve things and get them out of that cycle. It really takes, it's a different type of mindset at times that leads to people to making better decisions for themselves. I'm not saying this is everyone that's poor, but generally that's what the data says, that, people in poverty, it becomes a bit of a cycle, unfortunately. But they inherit that belief generation after generation, is that there's nothing I can do about it, which is sad. But do you think there comes a point where they can actually they can change their belief?
I think the change in belief in that scenario would be if there's like new evidence that is presented to them. So if they found someone in that environment who actually made it out of poverty, then that to them becomes wait, there's actually if this person was able to do it, then why can't I do it? Like there's that thought that you have that it's actually possible to get out of this poverty or situation I'm in, because you've been presented new evidence that there is such a case where you can get out of it. So I think to change a belief, you need new evidence presented to you, or you need new proof presented to you. And then eventually through practice, through action, through different forms of evidence you get, which is, it can be physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever it is, then that then constructs into a belief. So I think with beliefs, I get it, there's also things where people look in the mirror and then they tell themselves with affirmations and things, but it doesn't become I don't think it becomes a very complete constructed belief until you actually do the thing to prove to you who you are, what you say you are, rather than, saying things to other people and just, you don't actually believe that until you actually prove to yourself you are that person by doing the action.
So how does that relate to then you don't choose your beliefs then? Because is it saying that you're a parrot and you will say whatever people whatever the world is, whatever the biases are, whatever it is, that dictates what you say, but your actions are different to what you say? Is that the interpretation of that?
I think it is just it's just the way beliefs work is just you always require evidence, I think. And obviously there's such situations where it can be either upward or downward. And a lot of the time it always come back to what is the narrative we tell ourselves? It's you can have all these achievements around you, but you can still feel miserable because of the narrative that you've told yourself, that you're this anxious kid who's got self-esteem issues, who's stupid. And these thoughts probably came from other people as a child or something. And now this has become a narrative in you, but you're not conscious of it. But the evidence you receive might be from other people. So someone who's older than you saying you're you talk like this, or you're anxious, you're you're stupid. And then for you think that's evidence, right? At that, because you're young and you keep getting this same narrative told to you over and over again. And then that then becomes a belief. You actually have this hardwired into your brain that you think this way. Even if you have achievements where you're successful, you're academic, you still feel like you're incompetent. And because you have this narrative replaying in your mind from other people that have told you from your childhood. So it's to then be able to, I guess, change that way of thinking is you need, that's a very complicated scenario because even achievements don't construct your belief. It doesn't influence your change of your narrative that you have because it stems from childhood and trauma or something. And in that case, what some people do is they do hypnotherapy. It's just they get someone else who's a specialist in being able to revisit that time or view that narrative at that frame. So as a child, and I don't know how they do it. They're very effective in doing it. They put you in this trance state where you're completely relaxed and composed. And it's almost like you're revisiting that memory as a child, at that instance of time. And what they do is they then present new evidence by reinterpreting what that narrative is. And then your relationship to that situation changes. And then you start to then have this, because you have new evidence presented to you, then you start to, the way you view yourself and the narrative that you tell yourself starts to change.
So then does that contradict your belief you can't choose your beliefs because you can?
No, I couldn't choose it in that situation. I couldn't choose it in that situation. I had to go through like a complete process of new evidence being presented to me. Then I started to
Make a choice.
Yeah, I started to make choices. And then that's when the belief got
Change.
constructed and changed.
So
It's
therefore
like-
you can change your belief, right?
But it doesn't work the way that people think it is.
Right. Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say.
So,
It's like I can't, at this instance of time, with a click of like, with a snap of fingers, believe at that instance of time. I have to provide evidence to myself, and through action and things like that, that's when it does construct into a belief. But in that situation, like it's with childhood trauma and all those things, I didn't get to choose that. I didn't get to choose that belief in that instance, you could say. It came from evidence of other things. But of course, nothing is fixed, right? Is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it's not. That's what I'm trying to get to. The
Yeah,
perspective I
and-
have to is that when you're presented new evidence, and I think you have to go out of your way to actually find the facts and what you actually believe in, rather than basing your facts and opinions and assumptions. Because I think you can choose your beliefs once you've done what you've had to do to find the truth to it.
I think the way I would reword it is like you can influence change. You can influence your beliefs to like change and I think like at the end of the day, you have ultimate control over reactions and choices you make. And I think that leads to that has an influence or impact of your belief. So you could, in a way, say like, yeah, you can influence and change you could change your belief, but there's a whole process behind it. It's like the way I would say it. And it's like you can always influence change of your thoughts, the way you view yourself, narrative, all these things, because you always have choices, and you have responsibility, and you also have control over your reactions to events that happen to you. But yeah, it's a very I think the way we interpret it, I think, is a lot. It's like a very it's sort of, what do you call it? What's the word? It's like a paradox. It's like you can't choose it the way you think you can, where it's like a snap of fingers, you can change it at the instance of time. Like your physique, for example, you can change that. If you just train, you'll see results instantly. It doesn't work like that, but through choices and reactions and through seeking new evidence, as you said, you can influence that change of your belief. And then over time, as you keep doing that consistently, it then constructs into like a very hardwired belief, which is very difficult for anyone to come in to change it.
No, it's an interesting point. It's very interesting. Yeah. So I think you're right. I think, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are born into their beliefs as well of the world, how they perceive the world, how they view people, how they view different cultures, how they view different opinions, how they view different views. I think people are really not manipulated is the right word, but really molded to their way of thinking at a very, very young age. I think we don't stop. There's something about the age of 25 for men where it becomes harder for us to learn, or not harder to learn. I think do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like after 25, you slowly die at a very, very slow pace.
Yeah.
Like your body obviously is not going to be the same when you're 35.
Yeah. Yeah. Very different retaining knowledge.
Your memory starts to reduce as you go 50 past.
But yeah, I think in that instance, I think you can't change. What is it? You can't change your beliefs.
You can't choose your beliefs.
You can't choose your beliefs. Yeah. You're right. You can't choose your beliefs in that instance because it's a lot of your beliefs are sort of built by your parents and your environment that you grow up in. which is insane when you think about it, because like a young child can be such a vulnerable state at that point. And, this little human being is absorbing and sponging in all these things around them. And then as they grow up, that's what they believe. That's what they know.
Yeah, and it's only until you come to a certain age with enough knowledge and curiosity that then pushes you into like seeking new evidence. And that's when you can start to like have some sort of morph in your belief and change.
I think it's why it's why criminals or people that go to prison are more likely to go back to prison. Because, sadly the belief they have is, and I don't know what the belief exactly is, but, I've done this once, I've been in jail, survived, the world hates me.
It's a downward spiral.
It's a downward spiral. And to be honest, I think sometimes, once you have like a criminal record, like it makes it harder to do a lot of things in life, and at times you sort of feel for people that have made mistakes and that just want to be better. And then all of a sudden society keeps kicking them down, instead of, for whatever reason. I don't mean for crimes like, murder or anything horrific. I mean, sometimes there are certain things that we should be able to accept people for at that point in time. Maybe, through forgiveness or whatever it is. It was a mistake. It was a genuine mistake. But when you've been kicked down, like that's all you believe is, why care? And then you just undertake that downward spiral of repeating the same behavior over and over again, and it doesn't get you anywhere.